Okay, this is Big Boss with Foxhound Woods Ball, coming to you from Fort Lauderdale, and this is going to be one of those little, not really a rant, but it's going to be something along those lines. First off, I like to say how sickened I am about people marching in the streets screaming for dead cops. The reason why I say that is because I've had family that are in law enforcement. One of my uncles on my mother's side of the family was a Connecticut State Trooper. I've had an uncle that was fire marshal for Fairfield, Connecticut. I've had friends I went to high school with that became cops. I've had friends that went to war. I've gotten a family that went to war to the point where I know I've got a damn good idea of what that's like. Now, it doesn't take a genius to understand what would happen if these kind of idiots get their way and we dissolve our police departments. It doesn't take a fucking rocket scientist to see the kind of anarchy and chaos that'll happen if we get rid of our law enforcement component or our first responders in any capacity. As a paintball player, I've played with and against police officers and other first responders. So, playing with them and against them gave me a lot of insight. Not just from talking to them, but playing with and against them. And to be quite frank, I support law enforcement. I support first responders. I remember as a kid seeing the towers come down on 9/11 on my TV. I remember seeing the cops running in with the firefighters and not that many of them making it out when those towers came down. I remember watching on TV the Boston Marathon bombing. I remember how the Boston SWAT team, the ATF, FBI HRT tracked down those Chechen pieces of shit, took one out, and was dragging out the other bastard in handcuffs. And people were lined up along the side of the road cheering and calling those guys fucking heroes. I remember that. Does anybody else remember all that? Now, as I said, I support law enforcement, and I am sick and fucking tired of these anarchists and these so-called political activists screaming for dead cops, considering what they do. Yeah, there are asshole cops. That's a sad fact of life. This is an asshole no matter where you go, no matter what you do in your life, you'll always come across assholes. Now that's out of the way, I figured it's time as a paintball community, as an industry, or just people who care and give a fuck about the kind of shit that our first responders deal with, let's start a new hashtag. Let's call it splatafirstresponder. This is something that could be taken up by the paintball player community as well as the industry overall. The idea is to show our appreciation and our support for first responders in general. Now, how can we get involved? First off, let's share the hashtag via social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and stuff like that. How can the industry get involved? Well, for one, paintball companies that distribute paintball markers, equipment. We could do special discounts for police departments because a lot of those departments are underfunded to begin with. And for our companies that are in a lot of those areas, they could be a big help to their community by providing the necessary equipment for our law enforcement officers to train with. Especially with the mag-fed markers and the tactical markers. That would be great for SWAT cops to do their force-on-force training to help them out. Because it could be imagined quite a bit about what happens when law enforcement officers, or anyone for that matter, doesn't have the proper training to do their job. Paintball fields. There's another area, especially in areas where our police departments are underfunded. Open up your fields for them. Do something to support them. Open up your woods fields or anything like that to allow them to train on, because I know a lot of law enforcement departments don't have the necessary funding to have their own training facilities. And that's another way, but how could the average player get involved on the grassroots level even? Well, if you know a first responder, police officer, EMS, firefighter, take them out to the paintball field. Get them to trade up their trauma bags and their duty weapons for a paintball marker. That's something that anybody could do. That's kind of grassroots stuff that could expand. Hell, we can even go to bigger companies like Proper, True Spec, Opsgear, Blackhawk, and all these other companies that sell the equipment to our law enforcement. Put a little bit of, not necessarily pressure, but ask them to jump in and get involved too under the hashtag splatafirstresponder. With that being said, I gave more details on my blog page for it at outerheavenpaintball.blogspot.com. You could check out the written form of this in the description below. Anyway, this is Big Boss, and I'm out of here.